Blessings, and good afternoon, family, Levi family. If you don't know who I am, my name is Miss Grace. I hope you guys can hear me and see me. This is a rebroadcast of this morning's broadcast. I did not know that 30 minutes into the broadcast, you guys couldn't hear me, so we're doing a retake today. And we're starting a little bit different because now we have a major update for our audience, and I will hope that Trump will make this announcement or someone on his administration. But I do believe we need to be on high alert because in the last 4 hours there has been an announcement that they are increased threats to public tourist areas connected to America. Let's watch this real quick before we get to what we came to watch.
The war that America and Israel launched on Iran is just about ready to end its third week, and it shows no signs of slowing down. And in fact, it's intensifying. We're seeing continued attacks on energy infrastructure across the Gulf Arab states. Today we saw an oil refinery in Kuwait get hit repeatedly by drones. Meanwhile, we're continuing to hear more threats from Iran itself. The top military spokesman there went out and issued a statement warning that Iran's enemies would not be safe on beaches or recreational areas anywhere around the world. This is a threat that analysts have been warning that Iran could return to using militant attacks abroad in areas anywhere in the world to try to advance its goals in coming out on top in this war. We also heard from a Revolutionary Guard spokesman. He tried to counter what Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said about Iran no longer being able to build the ballistic missiles it's using to target Israel and the wider Middle East. But that spokesman was later killed in a morning airstrike, showing just how Israel is continuing to target top officials within Iran's theocracy, trying to weaken it, trying to weaken those also who are in forces that suppress nationwide protests back in January. We heard another statement from the Supreme Leader, Mustafa Khamenei, today, but again, he did not appear in a photograph or a video, continuing to raise speculation about his condition after the Israelis and the Americans have said he likely has been wounded in this war.
All right, so guys, this is the latest update in the last 4 hours, and this was after this morning broadcast. So today's broadcast was supposed to be highlighting Mr. Joe Kent and his interview that he did with Tucker Carlson. There's some key things that I wanted to go over with the audience related to our perspective of how the government actually run, highlighting that this gentleman played a role inside a key part of our government, and the things he's saying was truly alarming. But again, I will hope that Trump and his administration comes out to the people and say, hey, you need to be on high alert. This is our intel, this, that, and the third. So we're hearing this from actually Iran. They're telling us what they're going to do this weekend or on coming days for us to be on high alert. So with that goes to say, just a brief backing on what has happened over the last couple of days, because I have not been live. I wanted to let some things marinate. Again, this is a lot for everybody. So if you don't know what I do, I'm here to talk about political, social, legal issues from a non-biased perspective so we can digest it, make it mean something for each one of us, and utilize that information correctly without living in fear. So this is what we're going to do. We're going to break down the interview of Mr. Kent. We're also going to get into this new kill chain that I think has led to these new coming development, and this kill chain being connected to AI as well as Anthropic. So we do have a little bit more information, so this broadcast will be a little bit better because Anthropic came up in a couple of weeks ago as you heard Trump start to threaten this AI organization. So we're going to make it make sense. So as of today, March 20th, outside of what we just said, the latest military strategies update, they have been hitting so many oil reserve infrastructure, and this is the issue. Both sides are doing this, and this is going to lead us all into not only a change in the power structure of America, but also how we utilize energy and what energy we use in the near future. Let's just keep that in mind as I jump ahead. So the energy infrastructures that has been targeted was Israel recklessly, allegedly, this is according to what I have, recklessly struck Iran's South Pars gas field, the country's largest reserve. Okay, in retaliation, Iran fired missiles at Qatar, Ras gas facility, and in Saudi Arabia. So this is what's going on. They're hitting each other gas facility, and you know that these commodities that come from them goes all over the world. So this is significantly disturbing the global energy supply and causing our oil and gas prices to go up. Please let me know if your gas prices is going up. I talked about this last 2 weeks ago. I was like, wait, a week and a half. I said, wait. The gas is going up. Right now, we're close to almost $4 in Georgia. The lowest amount that I can find in Georgia right now is $3.66. So I am doing what I suggest to you guys. Get some gas on reserve. You know, don't make it like a crazy thing, but I just say get some gas on reserve while it's at a reasonable price. So when it gets to a point that you can't handle it, at least you'll have some backup gas. Store it in a safe place that's circulated out in your shed, your basement, and make sure that it's covered correctly. That's just my 1-2 to you guys. So regime leadership. The initial U.S.-Israel waves on February 28th killed the supreme leader, as you know, and that led to his son being put into position. To my understanding, allegedly, according to Indian News, his son has been injured, but his son is alive. So that is causing more issues, highlighting that they said another supreme leader has been killed today. And I think that's directly related to, what is it? The kill chain. Do you guys know what the kill chain is? Thank you for coming in. Get in the comments. Tell me how you feel. Decompress, guys, because we have to do this. Once we get it out, decompress, we can start thinking clearly and not live in fear. But this weekend, I don't advise people to go out, party, or whatever. And shout out, I'm in my studio. I had to get out of the kitchen because I have some things going on. We're doing spring cleaning and it's getting a little loud. So I said, let me go in early and we're here for it. So thank you for being here with Miss Grace. So this also, just 2 more entities has been involved in this. It is Pakistan that is now involved in this war, as well as they said that conflict in Lebanon is increasing. It says Israel has launched over 250 strikes against Hezbollah, in Lebanon, killing approximately 500 fighters since March 2nd. Okay, and displaced over 1 million civilians. So understand that civilians are being hit, and we have to be very vigilant out here. So now that was just my update. Now let's get to it. I think this right here, we're gonna get to, give me 1 second, just a little bit more of what President Trump is saying. We know Trump has said, hey, we got this, we don't need you. We're gonna bomb there in 5 days, 1 day, and it's not happening. A couple of broadcasts ago, I had brought up the particular, that river, or I'm not calling it a river, but that passageway that they're actually fighting over right now. So into that on Monday, but just understand when I had said, look at this, and I was pointing, I said right here, this canal, it's not about only control of that canal, but it's also about seizure of the land. Okay, we're not going to get too deep into that, but I want you to understand that some of the things that we're going to hear in Kent's interview with Tucker is going to clarify what I'm talking about. But let's just hear from our President Trump as he continued to contradict himself and say, we don't need you. Come help us. We don't need you. Come help us.
In other news, President Trump today reiterating his calls for allies to help protect global oil shipments through the Strait of Hormuz, saying that protecting the waterway is supposed to be a team effort. We're also learning the names of the 6 U.S. service members who were killed in that crash of a refueling aircraft in western Iraq.
Now, this too, I want y'all to keep in mind. I did a video. Did I take it down? I hope I didn't take it down. In the video, I did a comparison on what Putin was saying versus Trump. Maybe I can do that late night tonight because we really need to compare it. I don't know if it's still up there because I was having some technical issues, but I will clarify. Trump call out for help and telling other nations, oh, you need to come and help us because you're affected. You're supposed to come and protect us. I heard directly, or, in translation, where Putin said, hey, come buy oil from us. It's open. There's no problem. The only people that can't go by is American ships. Precisely what he said. So we're going to review that so we won't be confused. You have the mega supporters that be like, oh, everybody needs to come, all of our allies, and our allies are not suffering as much as we are because they're allowing their chips to go by. Okay. So right now we're going to get into this right here. Hold on. Let's watch this right here. Thank you for being with me this afternoon. Hopefully I can keep y'all company. It's a little bit different broadcast because I'm in a different room, but
unclear. We're really surprised that Israel decided to bomb Lebanon when we were bombing Iran. Pete Hegseth at the Pentagon, I want you to think for a moment all the things that might surprise you if you are Secretary of Defense when you engage in a war. Think of all the...
Hold on, y'all.
Pete Hegseth at the Pentagon, I want you to think for a moment all the things that might surprise you if you are Secretary of Defense when you engage in a war. Think of all the things after a week that would surprise you about the enemy.
Big mistake by the Iranian regime to start targeting its neighbors right away, exposing who they are and what they're all about, indiscriminate targeting, flailing recklessly at the beginning. I can't say that we anticipated necessarily that's exactly how they would react, but we knew it was a possibility.
Let's stop right here. I wanted to play this particular part because Mr. Joe Kent actually, he addresses this. He said he had an idea that they were going to strike all American bases. But again, when we listen to his testimony in his interview, we're going to highlight who is actually controlling America. But this clip was most recent in the last 2 days. And that's why I put my little 8-ball on. The next person that's going to be fired is either Pete Hegseth or Pam Bondi. But because this is the leading story right now, is the war, I believe it's Pete Hegseth. Pete, he's going to be going. Then Pam Bondi, highlighting that we're going to be talking about ISIS still behaving bad. I have a lot of information to share with you guys. It's a lot of things that's going on right now. The first child has died in ICE custody, just to let y'all know. So let's finish listening to Pete Hegseth because he's going to keep on saying stuff. He's going to say something stupid that Trump don't like, meaning that he's going to expose Trump for something and he's going to be fired. Let's just finish watch him.
And I think it was a demonstration of desperation of that regime then and that regime now.
The idea that now the Iranians have exposed themselves to people that they have lived with for their, for their entire existence. Like, I am sure the people in Dubai are now like, oh, now we really know who the Iranians are. After 3,000 years. We finally figured out those Persians. And the idea that Iran would attack U.S. bases, inflict some type of economic costs on these countries that have been clearly sort of supporting U.S. military in one fashion or another. Is that really surprising?
Indiscriminately attacking all these countries that we use as aircraft carriers.
We have idiots running the country. That's what I wanted to show you with this particular clip, and I'm so glad that he captured this. Let's just get to the audience real quick. I just want to clarify what you're saying, Danny. You said pull out of NATO. I believe, aren't we already pulled out of NATO? Isn't that what Trump wanted to do from the beginning, right? He wanted to. So just correct me if I'm wrong. Are we in NATO or out of NATO? I thought he didn't want no parts to do with NATO because allegedly they were one world order, and now he's calling for them to basically come and help. Just let me know, am I off? Not me. You said we don't have any allies. This is and I have to agree because of the administration and just the long history of this same pattern. And now it's escalating where we kidnap presidents and we're just setting off bombs for other people. I don't think we have much, but I will say this. I believe that other nations do hear the cry of the American people, guys. Whatever platform that you are on, please speak your piece. I go on TikTok, I go on Instagram, and you can get more realistic response. And hopefully they can hear our cries as American citizens and know at this point we're pretty much separate from Epstein land. Okay, this is what they call America, Epstein world, Epstein country. Okay, so represent your views and your values on your platform. Don't let them censor you. So this is this one more? Let's see what this one is. Counterterrorist advised. Okay, so let's just get to the resignation now. As you guys know about the resignation, we're just kind of building things up, and then we're going to get to Tucker Carlson and Mr. Joe Kent's interview. Thank you for being here today.
Joe Kent has resigned over President Trump's war with Iran. The director of the National Counterterrorism Center posted on social media saying, quote, Iran posed no imminent threat to the U.S. He also says, it's clear we started this war due to pressure from Israel. Let's bring in White House correspondent Karen Travers for more on that. Senior Pentagon reporter Louis Martinez and ABC's Patrick Reevell in Doha, Qatar as well. Hi to you all. So, Louis, how significant is this resignation?
It's very significant, Diane, because this is a senior U.S. counterterrorism official, a top intelligence official in the administration, and he has been a very strong supporter of President Trump for quite some time. He's former Green Beret, former CIA. His wife actually was killed in a terror attack in Manbij, Syria, 8 years ago. And so he heads the organization that would determine whether there is a terrorist threat to the United States.
All right, we're going to stop right there, and I'll leave that clip for you guys if you want to see it, because he actually, Mr. Kent, goes into a little bit of his background. We're going to watch like the first 30 minutes of Tucker Carlson's interview. But the reason why I find it very important, because there's some things that I think we overlooked when we're listening to him basically divulge what we know, that our country is being controlled by lobbyists. And this is a continuation of my chit chat in my car. As I say, it's not about Republican, Democrat, liberals. This is all to keep us arguing, keep us in a gang mentality, and keep us in subrogation, protecting these people. At the end of the day, there are certain people that can pay like they weigh and push certain agendas. And as I mentioned prior, I do believe that lobbying should be against the law. Okay? If you do take money from someone as a donation, there should not be any other influence that come with that, and there should be a cap. It's sad that we have to do that, but these super PACs and all of this crazy stuff, we don't have a democracy. We have certain people who control the narrative. So as we get into this interview right here, shout out to Tucker Carlson, and I let you guys know this. I don't totally agree with everything as far as people's perspective. And I'm just going to be real, because I'm showing Tucker Carlson on my platform. He has a way bigger platform, but I want to let you guys know how I truly feel. I do believe that there's certain people who are put in certain positions to push a narrative, and I believe that him and Candice are one of the people in this particular time to control a certain narrative. As you guys have heard, allegedly the CIA has intertwined in some way in communication with Tucker Carlson because of his views. But I'm going to throw this out here. If he has a father who was CIA and he grew up buttload rich, just remember all of this is for information and educational purposes only. I think he's a nice guy. I really do. And I really appreciate his approach. One thing I do want to clarify this, guys. The approach that I see with Tucker Carlson, and you may not notice this, is therapeutic communication. This is something that I learned in nursing school, and being a nurse for all these years. To get people to realize certain ideas, objectives, or things that you may want them to do to behave properly, you'll kind of make inference or ask questions, logical questions, kind of playing a role like you're kind of slightly naive. I'm kind of giving y'all the tricks to the trade, you know what I'm saying? So the people can kind of divulge more information to you as well as give you plausible deniability. And I think that is kind of Tucker Carlson's angle. I have to say he plays that role really, really good. Even I have like, oh, he's cool, but in the back of my head, I think I know what it is. So remember, guys, be diverse in everybody you listen to. Don't make these people the king and the queen of certain topics because that's what they want us to do. Just a heads up. Just a heads up, because some of my people be like, you listen to her. I'll be like, yo, I'll be waiting for Candice like it's a damn talk show. But I'm not aligned with everything. So I want you guys to be open to learning from different people. And I want to say thank you for being here. So let's get to this interview, and we're going to highlight some of the key things that prove that our country is not controlled by your votes, my votes, but by lobbyists. Okay, let's go. Oh, man, he divulged a lot.
It wasn't a promise to write a tell-all memoir about what he saw on the inside or to aggrandize himself or to get a job on a TV show or sell something. Joe, thanks a lot for joining us. I appreciate this. So I want to go through the letter that you sent yesterday as you resigned as director of the National Counterterrorism Center, and basically through the big points and give you a chance to explain them. You've been spoken for quite a bit over the last 24 hours. So I think it'd be really helpful to all of us if you would speak for yourself and flesh out some of these points. I'm just going to read the first one. I cannot in good conscience support the ongoing war in Iran. Iran posed no imminent threat to our nation. Iran posed no imminent threat to our nation. How did you reach that conclusion?
I think this is key. I mean, this would be more challenging to explain had the Secretary of State, the President, and the Speaker of the House not come out and said that we conducted this attack at this time because the Israelis were about to do so. So that takes away the argument that there was an imminent threat, as in Iran was planning to attack us immediately. That just simply did not exist.
May I ask you to pause? And so I've heard people say that, and this just happened, but history has a way of getting rewritten in real time, and then you look back 10 or 15, 20, 25 years later, and no one seems to understand the things that you saw, because I think it's important to stop and say, here's what we actually know. So I'd like now, if we could, just to play one of the statements that you alluded to, and that's from Marco Rubio, the Secretary of State, and this was shortly after this war commenced, and he was explaining, as this has happened, in a thoughtful, precise way, why. Here's Secretary of State Marco Rubio.
And so the president made a very wise decision. We knew that there was going to be an Israeli action. We knew that that would precipitate an attack against American forces. And we knew that if we didn't preemptively go after them before we launched those attacks, we would suffer higher casualties and perhaps even higher those killed. And then we would all be here answering questions about why we knew that and didn't happen.
Okay,
so that is
let me just pause right here because I have just a critical question to ask as far as we're seeing a contradiction of what they say. It was this, it was that. But you hear Trump say on the other end that these individuals had enough, how can I say, nuke parts to put a nuke together to do it 4 years ago. So the lies for us, that's what I want you to pay attention to. The consistent lies that Trump is putting out and his administration to keep this going as far as what was the root cause, which lead into this. How is Trump not liable for war crimes? This is the second time. And that's why I look at our system as a joke because, no, this is the third time, okay? The first time is going into Venezuela and just shooting the boats, this, that, and the third. Then you go steal the president, okay? And you're just killing people in the process because people died when he took the president. They said that they used, just between me and you, and I'm going to probably try to leave some information. Do y'all know about Havana syndrome? Do y'all know about that? And that type of kinetic energy warfare? They say that allegedly that they used that to get the Venezuela president. And that is something that is one against, how can I say, international law. It is, because that kinetic energy has not been tested. It hasn't been proved to be safe. We hold a lot of the patents of it, and it causes a lot of damage to people. So just keep this in mind, that these are some of the things that we're using. And right now, our administration, we have senators, we have the Senate, we have the House of Representations that's there, and they keep saying that, hey, we're going to impeach Trump. But nothing's happening. That's why I pray that they're watching the American people and seeing that is not us. And that's why I say it's not a Democrat or Republican thing. They're playing games with our life. He is responsible for 3 war crimes. But we're going to move forward. That's the reason why I went into detail, because this is not the first time. This is round 3. Are we going to ever get Trump out of here?
Most contemporaneous explanation, and it's not offhand, he reasons it out, he explains there's a logic chain there, and he says, we knew not that Iran was going to attack. He did not say that.
Right.
He said we knew that Israel was going to attack Iran, and in retaliation for those attacks by Israel against Iran, Iran might attack American forces. So the imminent threat that the Secretary of State is describing is not from Iran, it's from Israel.
Exactly. And I think this speaks to the broader issue. Who is in charge of our policy in the Middle East? Who's in charge of when we decide to go to war or not? In this case, with what the Secretary described, and later on the President, later on the Speaker of the House, and the way the events played out, the Israelis drove the decision to take this action, which we knew would set off a series of events, meaning the Iranians would. Now, I think there's a potential there where we could have done several different things. We could have simply said to the Israelis, no, you will not. And if you do, then we will take something away from you. I think that it's fine that we offer defense to Israel, but when we're providing the means for their defense, we get to dictate the terms of when they go on the offensive. Otherwise, they stand to lose that relationship. And the Israelis felt emboldened that no matter what they did, no matter what situation they put us in, that they could go ahead and take this action, and we would just have to react. And so that
Let's stop right here. Let's keep this in mind, that this is the top counterintelligence advisor, and he's letting us know that none of his intel has made the decision to move us forward. And I have to respect what you're saying under duress, and thank you for showing up again, because we had some issues this morning. It is all theater. There's no way he can get an interview with so many powerful and influenced people if he wasn't an agent of misinformation. And that's back to my sentiments about Tucker. And it's like I said, it's no disrespect. I treat people like humans, but you have to see who they are so you don't fall for the propaganda. So I'm glad you do see that and that you brought that up. But as far as what we're watching, you see that this gentleman, and I mentioned this a while ago, and this is why I want to make I want to drill this in. I have so much respect for this man. I don't care if he's Democrat or Republican, because you're going to hear the decision that he made was based on being an American and being human and being logical and dealing with common sense. And to lose somebody like this is what I'm saying. We're in deep doo-doo. And us as American citizens, just to add on, I do think that we may need to take to the streets just a little bit. I do think so. I don't know if all the black people need to come out there. He's going to heighten it, but I do think we need to take to the streets to tell them to stop this war. This is serious, because at this point, where every weekend or every day now the threat level is going up because they're suffering so many casualties and we have not. I do think that's what we need to do. But let's finish listening to Mr. Kent, because I have to express the admiralty I have for him, because I mentioned this weeks ago. As a frontline worker in COVID, and I saw what they were doing, and I heard all you guys were saying, I had to make a decision to walk away. I said I couldn't take that money they was giving in New York, knowing that they were cross-contaminating people. People wasn't going to check on the patients. I could go in for days. I gave up $10,000, and I'm so proud of this man. He lost his pension, so I pray that the community supports him for the decision he made.
It speaks to that relationship, but also it just shows that there was a lobby pushing for us to go to war. I know we'll get into that later on in the statement, but we had a real potential, I think, knowing what we know of the Iranians and how they react, and in particular, how they react to President Trump's leadership. The Iranians, under President Trump's leadership, especially in his second term, they have shown that they take a very calculated approach to the escalation ladder. For instance, in the lead up to the 12-day war before Midnight Hammer, the Iranians didn't attack us. They were engaged in negotiations with us. When President Trump came back into office, they stopped their proxies who were attacking us under the Biden administration because they knew Biden was weak. They stopped their proxies from attacking us as well. So they knew President Trump was someone who wanted to negotiate, but more importantly, they knew that President Trump was not someone to mess with because he killed Qasem Soleimani, he killed Abu Mahdi Mohandas, he had defeated ISIS. They knew that President Trump was a man of action.
Now, I have to clarify this. I don't know about all of this. I did stop the last live and said, I don't know about Trump accomplishing all of this, and ISIS is definitely not defeated. There's some things here that I'm going to have to circumvent when he gets to it, because it is just a little bit rare. You could tell he loves Trump, but he is still more on a non-bias, because I don't think Trump defeated ICE.
Strong. And so they said, before we take an action, We need to make sure that it's calculated. So I think in this scenario, even if the Israelis told us we're going to strike on this date at this time, and we didn't, try to negotiate with the Israelis and say, hey, we'll take something away from them, I think we still could have back-channeled to the Iranians and said, hey, if something happens here in the next couple of days, it's not us. We're still serious about negotiations, and we want to escalate this, because it's well known what the Iranians' plans were. We knew that they were going to hit potentially our bases in the region, potentially our allies. We knew about the Straits of Hormuz. All of these things, I think, were fairly well known.
Do you hear that? So that is direct indication of what Pete Chesnutt was saying. He was like, oh my God, now you're already 14 days or how many days into this, and you're like, oh my God, I did not know that they was going to bomb all of our bases and, just hit all of these American places. That is a delayed response. They are far beyond this point. But again, we're not listening to this counter-terrorist advisor who we have in position, who has years of knowledge and connections to Iran, because he was out there. He fought out there. He's fought several wars. Who are we listening to? Lobbyists. Who runs our nation? If you guys just want to make sure that we don't have no cognitive dissonance here and we're not falling for it again, it's lobbyists. We're going to have to, if you guys believe in this system between me and you, you're going to have to fix what's broken. And that's real. All of this going right back in and playing the same game is not going to work. So the lobbyist perspective for me have to be do away with. People can donate, but it has to be a cap and it has to be monitored, and nothing related to that entity's business should have anything to do with the current politicians' movement, perspective, or anything. If y'all gonna play this political game, people, where you say you're a Democrat or Republican, I really think you should listen to this advice so we can get through this or at least survive.
And the Houthis' ability to close the Red Sea, which is not yet done, but which would be catastrophic to the world. Everybody knows somebody who has had an unexpected tragedy. You lose a parent, a spouse, and that person,
Let's
to
move
compound the
forward
tragedy,
just a
didn't have
little
life
bit. Give me
insurance.
1 second.
It's bad enough, you're saying.
I know I was talking a little bit, but this is the thing I want you guys to pay attention to. He said something about the Red Sea. So that little corridor, that little hook is what we're kind of worrying about. But you have to remember that I believe there's 3 of the rivers in the Bible that they talked about. And I believe these are the rivers, but that dumps into the Red Sea. So something we need to look into when it comes to what's going on in the Red Sea. Just giving y'all a heads up. I don't know why, but maybe this is something we'll be talking about next week. So just a heads up. Grace Levi said pay attention to the Red Sea, and it's something else we got to pay attention to, Grok and AI.
Compunction about really fighting anybody who threatens our country, and the Iranians have posed a threat in the past, and the Iranians have a way of threatening America. They have the capability, and we always talk in the intelligence circles about capability and intent, what your enemy is capable of doing and what they actually want to do. And again, back to the data that we have on the Iranians, they used the escalation ladder. We saw that deliberately during the 12-day war. When they struck back after Midnight Hammer, it was very deliberate. They fired an equal amount of missiles as we dropped bombs on the nuclear facilities, and they basically hit a part of a base in Qatar that they knew we didn't have any troops on. They didn't want to escalate any further than we were willing to go. But also, the Iranians, when they pose a threat to us, they usually do it with their proxies. And if their proxies stick their heads up and their proxies come after us, this is basically the Trump doctrine, we hammer them, and we hammer their high-profile leaders. Qasem Soleimani was highly effective and highly revered in Iran because the previous presidents, prior to President Trump, Obama, and Bush, let Qasem Soleimani run around, raise proxy armies, kill Americans, and no one ever did anything to him. President Trump rightfully killed Qasem Soleimani.
Now let's stop. What do they mean? What do they mean under Biden that he basically built up the administration out there in Iran and they killed Americans? Have anybody heard this? See, this is what I'm saying. No Democrat or Republican will be elected. What is going on here? Even though we know that this has been continuous and it's biblical, this is what we need to pay attention to. Going on under the Biden administration, allegedly he was more soft-handed with Iran and allowing things to happen that we didn't even know. Here we go.
Got his deputy, Abu Mahdi Mohandas, who had American blood in his hands, took them off the battlefield. But then President Trump stopped. He took those 2 key players off the battlefield And he said, I'm not going to further escalate with Iran unless you escalate with us, knowing that if we struck Iran and we truly struck the regime, that would only strengthen the regime. So then President Trump did something that's incredibly smart. He used that decisive military action, but then he coupled it with an economic package of sanctions, maximum pressure sanctions. And we can debate whether or not we should be using sanctions as the prime reserve currency holder or whatever, but he pressured the Iranians economically. After punching them in the mouth and showing that, hey, I won't take this, I'm not Obama, I'm not Bush, if you cross a line, I will come after you. But then he really put the pressure on them economically. And if you look at the effect of the economic sanctions, that's what got the Iranian people on the streets actually protesting against the Ayatollah's government.
Let's stop right here. Now, I'm going to have to give a different scenario to this. I don't think that that's totally the truth. Now, in this last year, I don't think Trump was able to do all of this towards Iran. I know that he put sanctions out on people, allegedly, tying up exports and imports and increasing fines and fees and things. But you have to understand, Iran was also dealing with who? Who they primarily deal with? Russia and China. Russia and China has been under sanctions since the first administration with Trump, and it continued through Biden because we were allegedly supporting Ukraine. And I want you to hear something that Kent says about Ukraine, something that goes over our head. So what he's saying now is that because of the sanctions that we put on Iran and the pressure, it made the people more stronger to come out and protest. And this is where I don't agree with it, because in real time, I have seen this same tactic continue to go on and on. The only reason why I do believe that the Iranians are coming out right now to protest, because they may have been fueled by somebody, i.e. little minor ISIS packets, okay? How ICE is put together, ISIS, not ICE, not the ICE immigration, but ISIS is put together, is that you have people who want to go against the government. They feel a way about what's going on. They're activists, and then they get fueled by, i.e., America, and America fuels them with guns and money, and you start to see them wearing the American uniforms, as I talked to you guys about. Now, the reason why I'm so sure of this, because this is exactly what happened in Haiti. So we had these young people getting riled up with guns and army stuff and crowd pleasers, and we like, where did this come from? Because Haiti, we don't produce guns. But then you have a connection to the biggest gang leader out there, Barbecue, who was allegedly connected to the CIA. That comes back up again. That had export connections from Florida. This is where Barbecue was allegedly bringing guns into America, until Barbecue said, I don't need y'all. We have enough guns. Now get out of my face. And then they want to put what? Charges on Barbecue, and now Barbecue is a terrorist in America eyes, because they already gave him everything, and now we have a bunch of gangs fighting in Haiti, trying to take control of the government. And I think that is just a synopsis of what happens in all of these nations where we come in the same way, and that's what's going on in Iran. So I think it's a misconception of him saying that, we got them liberated, like they're ready because we put sanctions. No, the sanctions actually made them more poorer and made them have to become a little bit scavenger. Happened in Haiti. We're basically cut off from all the nations. Now, I'm talking like this so you can see a real life scenario. Well, what's real life to me, because I've seen it, and then what's kind of distant. Does it make sense? This is a pattern. So then you get the people in Haiti that's hungry. Now we all want change, because the gas prices up, blockades, is war, and now we're in the streets. And now we're looking like it's uproar against the government organically, just like they're trying to subscribe to us about Iran, but it's not organic. Does that make sense? Did I say a mouthful? But I just wanted to kind of circumvent what he said. I love the fact that he's being transparent. Maybe he want to get back in with Trump a little bit. But baby, we didn't embolden them. Give me 1 second. I'm sorry. Let me know if you can hear me or see me, because I got knocked out of the live. I do apologize. But I hope that made sense to you guys. Put a 1 in the chat if you understood what I was saying. Put a 2 if you like, girl, you crazy. Whatever you feel. But this is what I'm thinking is going on in Iran, and the narrative is kind of being misconstrued for us.
Which is ostensibly what we would like. We would like to see a bottom-up regime change where we get rid of the Ayatollah, but it's the will of the people, and they have a new successful government that's stable that we can deal with. The one way to
Let
throw
me
that
know if
all
you
out
can
the
hear
window,
me,
and this isn't
guys.
just Joe Kent's opinion, many scholars, and I think a lot of intelligence assessments have been written about this too, I know for a fact they have, is that if we struck the regime, it would only strengthen it. And that's not, I think that's just basic common sense. I mean, I think of myself, and probably you're in this camp as well, we didn't like Joe Biden, we didn't like Barack Obama, but if an outside force were to come in here and try and topple them while they were the president, I would 100% rally around the flag. That's just common sense. So if we wanted to
Well,
strengthen
you actually
the Ayatollah,
did. You joined the military under Bill Clinton,
Under
whom
Clinton.
I assume you didn't vote for.
Right.
Right, you joined in 1998. You've gone the whole cycle of the war on terror, I notice, and served out as an NCO. I think your entire
NCO warrant officer.
And that's why I like him.
And I should just say I hate ever judging a man's resume as like a data point because your ideas exist separately. But in this specific case, meaning you spend most of your time fighting Iranian proxies.
Yeah, a good deal of it, yeah.
Yeah. So you're aware of the threat from Iran. You have personally used violence against that threat.
I have.
Yep. A lot of it, I think. And you supported the president's policy up until fairly recently.
Right.
And you've said that a lot in public. In fact, you went to work for him. He hired you.
Yeah.
Right. But here's from what I can tell, is the central question. Imminent threat. Now, the president has said many times to many people, including the public, Iran can't have a nuclear weapon. I'm sure he must have said that to you. You don't have to say it. But he said it to everybody. Is that fair?
That's fair.
Yeah. They can't have a nuke. Whenever asked, we say, let's just start here. They can't have a nuke. Okay, got it. Everyone agreed with that conceptually. Was Iran on the verge of getting a nuclear weapon?
No, they weren't, 3 weeks ago when this started, and they weren't in June either.
Listen to what he's saying, because Trump said directly that they could nuked us 4 years ago, and I'm like, how do you backdate this? Talking about I did it now because they could have nuked us 4 years ago, and he's saying precisely no. They could probably do it in 6 weeks, but we'll be knowing when they start to assemble whatever they need to. This is directly what he said. But again, none of our decisions to go to war was based on what the man has told Trump. Because when you watch the whole interview yourself, you're going to hear that he barely had 1 or 2 conversations with Trump. Trump don't even know him, just like he said. This is the most important guy in the times that we're in right now, and Trump don't even know him.
I mean, the Iranians have had a religious ruling, a fatwa, against actually developing a nuclear weapon since 2004. That's been in place since 2004. That's available in the public sphere. But then also we had no intelligence to indicate that fatwa was being disobeyed or it was on the cusp of being lifted. The Iranian strategy, it's actually pretty pragmatic. The Iranians are obviously aware of what's taking place in their region, and their strategy was to not completely abandon their nuclear program because they saw what happened to Muammar Gaddafi in Libya when he said, hey, I've got no more nukes. I'll do what you say. I'll give up my nukes.
And we gave him the Nobel Peace Prize?
Yeah, we regime changed him, and he was executed by his own people in the most horrific way.
Sodomized by a bayonet, right? Okay. So that's the lesson I think that the entire region took from that when Hillary Clinton.
Unfortunately, that's what the neocon, neoliberal warmongers, that's.
Now, that's what he's saying. I don't know this neocon thing because they've been pushing this new, categorization. But basically, they're pushing the, how can I say, the storyline that these people are trying to make nuclear weapons. Again, I have talked to you guys about respect. You can't come into somebody's house and say, you can't have this, you can't do this, you can't protect yourself. I have to give Iran some type of respect and credit to the fact that they were even negotiating with the outside country that has nothing to do with them directly on what they can have and don't have, highlighting that Iran has 20% of the oil reserve of the world, the pure oil reserve, which caused them to have some type of upper hand, but they respected America just a little bit. I'm just got to keep it real because that's weird to me. I wouldn't let nobody come to my house and tell me what I could have. But according to what Ken said, that they had the pieces to make a nuke, which I think many countries do, or they are call away from having it. But what he's saying when we continue to watch it is that the storyline is pushed because we don't have real intel. We have lobbyists, and that's why we need to do away with lobbyists. We do. We have to.
The lesson that they showed everyone in the region. And then conversely, the Iranians also knew that if they came out and said, okay, we've got a nuke, whether they were bluffing or not, Saddam Hussein, Iraq right next door. So they kind of had
he hung, I think.
He was hung by his own people, after a bloody, war that's still essentially going on inside of Iraq. So the Iranians' position, when viewed from the lens of the region, was actually fairly pragmatic. They were preventing themselves from developing a bomb, but they still wanted the ability. They wanted the ability to enrich. They wanted the ability to have some components so that they weren't completely stripped of it. And when we always assessed that they were either several months or a year, 2 years away from actually being able to develop a nuclear weapon. And that's not because the Iranians are stupid people. I think we can tell right now that the Iranians are anything but stupid. They had the ability, I think, that the brain power to actually develop one, or they could have simply traded a ton of oil with Pakistan or with someone else.
See, and that's what I said. Everybody's probably just a trade away from making nuclear weapons as far as, getting ready for war. That's something that we can trace. We can kind of get intel on if we're actually paying attention to our counterintelligence. Shout out to Mr. Wolf in the audience, Wolf 708. Iran has a portal under it. No, there's no real intel. Now, we could talk about that on another day, but I do believe that in that particular area and under Israel,
they were not
where the Gaza Strip is at, biblically, the abyss is supposed to be under the Gaza Strip. If you guys know the Bible, and they are shaking the beast. So I'm with you, but don't flood the comments with all that because we don't want to get to the left. That's for another day. That's for a day when we get a little bit more biblical. But I do believe that there are layer lines that's in certain places. In these particular places where these layer lines cross, energy portals is where you have the most drama, the most issue. If you go look up layer lines, you'll see that a lot of these layer lines cross in cities, big cities, metropolitan areas like New York, Los Angeles, and things like that. And this is why when chaos happens there, it's in heightened. So I understand what you're saying, but don't get me to the left, okay? Grace be thinking about everything, baby. It's a spiritual warfare. But let's finish listening to how Mr. Kent breaks down how we're being lobbied and why, not why, but just highlight his intel was never taken serious. They didn't even ask him questions.
We had no intelligence to indicate that they were.
Then why was the president, was he told that they were on the brink of it? Why at the beginning of every conversation about Iran would the president say, I don't want Iran to have a nuclear weapon? Why was that the central question when, and you would know since you were the director of the National Counterterrorism Center, why would he say that if there was no intelligence or evidence that they were actually developing a nuke?
So a couple things. This is what I talk about in the letter about this ecosystem of information that's laundered through a lot of prominent neoconservative types that are very sympathetic to the Israeli cause, and then also Israeli government officials who give us things in semi-official channels. What they did was they created basically a shifting red line or a new red line. So if the president's red line was Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon, we've actually got a lot of trade space in there for a deal to be made, because of what I just described with the Iranian policy. Essentially, the Iranians saying, okay, well, we don't want a nuclear weapon. Well, that means we basically are at a point where we can start negotiating and we can come up with a deal, and the president is a fantastic deal maker. Yeah. So if your goal is to move us away from any kind of deal and your goal is to move us into a conflict, you have to shift that red line. And that's where a lot of this, I would say, what became a de facto U.S. policy of Iran can have no nuclear enrichment. It was laundered through a lot of the different talking heads, Mark Levin, Mark Dubowitz, you've got the Foundation for the Defense of Democracies, you name it. Washington, D.C. has plenty of pro-Israeli lobbyists who will come
and don't forget,
say those things, who will publish think pieces.
He said his name, but Netanyahu. If y'all remember one day, Netanyahu was sitting next to Trump, and I kept saying, look at that guy. Look at that guy. Y'all remember I was Aggie, and I was like, look at him, and nobody really paid attention. I said, this is his third, fourth time here. What is he doing here? And this is what he was doing, putting a bug in Trump's ear directly, circumventing counterintelligence. Trump is so such a businessman. Good business people know that they need a team. They know they need a board. They need people with different specialties. And they need to, basically go to those people to get that specialist information. I can't run with this sort of cognitive dissonance that Trump is still a good businessman now. Come on, let's get to it. I really can't run with it. But Kent, I like you. So let's just hear him highlight that this war was started by lobbyists. Everything is started by lobbyists. Our vote is controlled by lobbyists. Our food is controlled by lobbyists. Our healthcare is controlled by lobbyists. And I'm saying this because after this, or while this is going on, I think the people who believe in this system need to figure out a way to circumvent all these issues. Okay? Because if you get the Democrats that come in here, the system is still this is still going on. Does that make sense? That's why we're talking about it. We have to fix the system. If you believe in it, you want to vote, we have to focus on these things.
On it, who will go on the media, who will run, op-eds in the Wall Street Journal to talk about this, why they can't have any enrichment whatsoever. And then we have a high degree of engagement with Israeli government officials who will come in and say, well, they're enriching and they could enrich, or they could enrich more, and that will get them closer to a nuclear weapon. So then enrichment basically became the new U.S. policy. And the only official I've heard, and folks are welcome to look for this, that said this in the first Trump administration was Mike Pompeo. He said it. The president didn't say it. The president has been very consistent. He said they can't have a nuclear weapon. But again, like I said, that puts us at a place where we actually could have negotiations.
Sorry,
and only President Trump, I think, could successfully have negotiations with Iran because he actually punched them in the face. And the Iranians had been walking all over us. They've been killing our soldiers. All of that is true. I have no sympathy whatsoever for the Iranians, what their proxies were doing. President Trump level set that when he killed Qasem Soleimani and he killed Abu Mahdi Mohandas. The folks who wanted to push an actual regime change war in Iran knew this, and they knew there was a potential to get a deal, or there was a potential for President Trump just to continue the policy of maximum pressure sanctions, and if you come after us, we will hit you hard. And that got the protesters out on the street in Iran, and that's actually what the regime feared the most. I don't think the Ayatollah feared dying, not because he, is some crazy lunatic. I'm sure some degree of the Shia martyrdom culture played a factor in that. However, I think he knew that if he was killed, the regime would survive because the people would rally around the regime.
Well, there's been a lot of noise in the news.
Now, where's the protesters at right now? Because the protesters that I saw out there, they wasn't protesting against the regime right now. So that's what I'm saying. That's why I think they were bought and paid for. We're going to watch one more section of this, and I pray that this section actually highlights the information I want you guys to hear. That the war in Ukraine, it's literally because NATO want that war. And this is what he says. I pray that this is the part. It's not because Russia went in there bombing. We're going to talk about it. He kind of divulged a little bit more than he was supposed to, but let's go.
First, the Iranians are going to launch this big sneak attack. They're going to do some kind of a 9/11 Pearl Harbor, et cetera. They're going to attack one of our bases. There was none of that intelligence. Again, back to what we know about the Iranians. They're very, very deliberate with the escalation ladder. And again, they're only deliberate under President Trump's leadership because they knew and they took President Trump very, very seriously.
So, I mean, I just think it's a remarkable thing to nail down because you're not some guy on Twitter. You're a senior, as of yesterday, you were a senior U.S. Intelligence official who's not hostile to President Trump, who's not going to here to write a book or launch a media career. So I think you're a sober voice on this. And just clear, there was no intelligence that showed imminent threat. There was no intelligence that showed they were on the cusp of building a nuclear weapon. There was no intelligence, indeed, that showed they were trying to build a nuclear weapon. And nobody said, I've seen it, but you haven't. It exists, but you just haven't seen it. Did you ever hear anybody say there is intel that shows this?
I did not know, but I know how this works. I know Israeli officials, some in intelligence, some in government, will come to U.S. government officials, and they will say all kinds of things that we know from our intelligence just simply isn't true. And they'll say, hey, I'm giving you a preview. It's not in intelligence channels yet, but here's what's going to happen. And that doesn't usually come to
Wait a second.
So basically, we went into this war because he said, she said. Go ahead and clarify that. The level of ignorance for our politician is nauseating for me. I'm just going to be honest. Hit the like button.
I mean, I thought that U.S. policymakers made their decisions on the basis of intelligence collected and or vetted by our intelligence. That's why we have intelligence agencies that soak up hundreds of billions a year. But you're saying that Israeli officials short-circuited the entire U.S. government and just went right to American policymakers and said, doesn't matter what your country says, here's what we know. Is that what you're saying?
I mean, usually they're pretty slick, and
of
and
course.
they'll say, hey, this isn't in intelligence channels yet because it's going to take some time to get there. And here they're on the cusp of building a bomb. They're going to, I don't know, you pick your topic. A lot of times they'll sample different things until they find what sticks. But in general, the narrative about, they're going to do a preemptive attack, or really just they're going to build a nuclear weapon. And if we don't stop them now, they're going to build a nuclear weapon. And enrichment is the pathway to that. They're going to continue enriching at whatever percent. Enrichment became the narrative. And so that hung up and that short-circuited and really sabotaged the entire negotiations because the Iranians basically said, like, we're not going to negotiate if the whole starting point is no enrichment. And again, that had nothing to do with a nuclear weapon. And the Iranians essentially agreed to that. So the Israelis came in, they moved that red line, and they would do a lot to say, like, oh, they're enriching. And you know what that means? That means in X amount of time, they could have a nuclear bomb. You have to ask now. And then the way the ecosystem would work is that the talking heads on TV, your Mark Levin's, Sean Hannity's, et cetera, they would say basically the exact same thing that night on TV, or there would be a piece written in the Wall Street Journal, the New York Times, that would say something very, very similar. Yet, if you looked in classified intelligence, we didn't see any of that.
I mean, that must have been such a weird experience for you.
bizarre.
Since you have access to the biggest and most powerful and presumably the best intelligences in the world, and you're seeing people say things as fact when you know that they're not facts.
Right.
What was that like?
It's terrible.
Infuriating. And I think that's why, in general, in the lead up to this last iteration, a good deal of key decision makers were not allowed to come express their opinion to the president.
Not allowed by whom?
I think it's important for me right now just to stay on the facts. I don't want to point names. I don't want this to become a name calling or this guy did this on this day.
But any leader has gatekeepers.
So basically, he was gatekept, and he wasn't even able to get to the president to talk to him. But honestly, like we said, if Trump was the best businessman, he'd be reaching out to specialists himself and not let gatekeeping happen.
You're saying that you were prevented from bringing this information directly to the president by gatekeepers.
Well, there wasn't a robust debate. So in general, because our assessment really hadn't changed, we would send those up through intelligence channels. Everybody's kind of reading the same intelligence, but then what actually gets briefed to the president can be very, very different depending on who and how it's delivered. And without a level set from the intelligence community, someone like D&I Gabbard coming in and saying, Mr. President, like, here's the full scope of the intelligence and what it means, you're kind of lacking that sanity check of where we're at, or at least a good sampling, to gauge how accurate what the Israelis are saying is. And that process, in my view, was largely stifled in the second iteration. There was robust debate and robust discussions leading up to the 12-day war into Midnight Hammer. But the second round, to me, and I'm sure others will refute this and disagree with me, but was conducted by just a handful of advisors around the president.
That is true. I believe what you're
And
saying.
we're going to stop right there. I thought the statement was going to come up. I want you guys to watch this yourself. He says in the statement that basically they went into Ukraine because of NATO. And that was what Putin was saying, that he felt like Ukraine was making a partnership with NATO and that they would control the ports there. And that will severely shut off Russia's economy, highlighting that they are already sanctioned. So I'm gonna let y'all watch that. But he said a mouthful, and I think the people who don't watch Republican things need to go watch Republican things. People who don't watch Democrat things, go watch the Democrats. And again, shout out to my audience member. I forgot your name, I'm so sorry. Where you are on point, Mr. Wolf, you're on point. Where you see, Tucker Carlson is a nice guy, seems pretty nice, but we're not a fool. We already know that certain people can talk about certain things and do certain things and create a certain tone. So if he's talking about the CIA coming after him, that's going to make people pretty afraid to talk about stuff, but he's going to still be the talking point. Does that make sense? And that's not happening. We're going to keep on moving our mouth. And if you have something that's on your heart, speak. They need to hear the American people speak. Now we're going to just get to this. We have a few more minutes. I pray that my battery will be able to hold. There's just a little bit more information that I want to share related to the first update. Now, there is this new thing called speed up the kill chain, and they're using AI technology to do so. So we're going to watch a little bit of Democracy Now!, where they kind of talk about this tech company called Anthropic, who have this type of defense system that they're actually using right now, I think. And that's why I think they're able to hit so many targets, most recently in the last 24 to 48 hours, which now is turning into a higher threat level for us as citizens. Let's watch this real quick. And this is where AI come in and all of this technology that we may not know exists, but we have to be prepared for. So let's just watch this.
And prioritize targets. The system, known as Project Maven, was created by Palantir, and it incorporates the AI model Claude built by Anthropic. The Pentagon's investigating if the AI system played a role in the U.S. strike on the Iranian girls' school that killed over 170 people, mostly girls. This is CENTCOM Commander Admiral Brad Cooper talking about the use of AI in Iran.
Our warfighters are leveraging a variety of advanced AI tools. These systems help us sift through vast amounts of data in seconds, so our leaders can cut through the noise and make smarter decisions faster than the enemy can react. Humans will always make final decisions on what to shoot and what not to shoot, and when to shoot, but advanced AI tools can turn processes that used to take hours and sometimes even days into seconds.
Okay, so we're going to stop right here. In this particular situation, the reason why we're bringing this up is because I don't believe that we have total control over AI. Highlight, We already heard, if you don't know, that some AI programs has become sentient. Go look that up, to the point that when programmers try to deprogram them, they trick the programmers. They sometimes blackmail the programmers. Go look this up. I'm not making it up at all. Or they pretend that they're shut down so the upgrade won't happen. I pay attention to a lot of stuff. So you're telling me now that we have systems in place like Grok, made by the infamous Elon Musk, our space cadet, where Grok is making future predictions about certain things, being sentient, and you're going to tell me that if we use a program like Anthropic, we're going to do more research, that Anthropic is going to move so fast and then it's just going to stop at the point for humans to make the indecision. Based on what? What statistics are we reviewing in a short period of time that we can make a better decision than AI? These are the things that we have to talk about, because what happened with the Girl School, I think it may have been AI driven. They had great intel. They hit the school. And then as they were picking up the pieces and ambulance was there, they hit the school 40 minutes later, literally killing civilians, people who are frontline workers. And it was like double jeopardy. How does that happen? That hasn't happened like ever. So that's why I do think it's important for our elected officials to figure out if they're using unapproved AI systems for this, because it takes it to another level. Because the more we take it to another level, the higher other countries take it to a higher level. And we have to keep in mind that Russia and China in itself has integrated technologies and things that we didn't even know they integrated technologies in. I'm just going to give you a heads up as we get out of here. The technologies that they integrated is literally in their contracts. What does that mean? Okay, because we're going to follow up with this AI and Grok thing. I got to go off with a cliffhanger. Now, you have basically America fighting for its life. We're not fighting for oil. We're fighting for the petrodollar. And that's real. This is why Gaddafi was killed. This is why Saddam Hussein was killed. It wasn't because of oil and just the ISIS thing. Behind all of that propaganda, each one of them were trying to set up some type of gold back reserve. Am I lying or am I flying? Let's tell me, am I lying or am I flying? Again, now you have Iran that's dealing with Russia and China has not only gold back currency that is connected to a blockchain that's connected to their contracts. What does that mean? Meaning that a country who wants to buy oil from China, they're going to be honorable. Their contract is solidified by blockchain, meaning that I sign a contract, I want 100 barrels of oil. The money is already secured. So they want 100 barrels of oil from me. Let's say that. And I'm providing them. So as I provide my order to them, the money is already secured in a bank that's backed by gold. I talked about this a little bit when I talked about China immigration and what's going on their intel and why the technology is so high. So good, and some of the things they're doing. So we're going to get into that. So this fight is actually for the U.S. currency power. And we're going to close off by saying this. If you hear that and you can make sense of it, what are you going to do? Our government is not giving us a heads up or giving us the real story behind it. We know that other nation has gold-backed currency and they're starting to basically come together, okay, and consolidating their power. What can we do to circumvent that? And that's why I promote to have a diverse portfolio. I am not a specialized investor, but whatever God tells you to invest in, such as gold, land, stable markets, do so. Just find a way to stabilize yourself. Okay, guys? So, I don't want to just throw things out there and have people thinking like, oh my God, all this bad stuff. We have to have a plan. So that's kind of what I want to throw out to you guys. We're going to follow up on Monday or Tuesday. We're going to get into ICE. Not ISIS, but ICE is still behaving bad. There is a child that died in ICE custody. There's lawsuits that's still coming. That's why I'm in between. Is it going to be Pam Bundy or Peach Heseth that's fired next, because there's still trouble right now. While we're fighting wars, about to send our young people out, we're not even knowing that we are allegedly about to have terror attacks that has been happening. We have this going on the side where we still have ISIS detaining people and illegally. When was it ever legal to kill somebody? You let me know. In slavery times? Right. All right. So what this goes to say, I love you guys. Thank you for being here with Miss Grace. I'll be live on Monday. Please look at the uploads that we put up, and I may have one up for you this weekend. Is there anything in the community that y'all want to put out there? Let me know. I'm here for you guys. Until then, let the algorithm know that you like me. I'm not monetized. This is going to be the realest channel that you ever know. Please join me on Wednesdays where I do my Atlanta food giveaway. The next week, I will be able to feed 100 people. And then the next week, I'll probably be able to feed 50. I'm on a budget, guys. If you feel in your heart to help me, $1.60 feed one homeless person in Atlanta. My Cash App is at the bottom. Love you and have a great weekend and stay safe. Hug your family and love them for real. Because that's all we got. In Jesus. Let's go. Yes, Mary, read our Bible. That's why I went live early. It's the Sabbath tomorrow. Let's get it.